Hey guys, how's it going? It's Baggins here, and today I wanted to talk about some unreleased stuff in the game that we're potentially going to see in the near future. This includes Daggers, the Void Gauntlet, the One-Handed Mace, the Brimstone Sands region, the Two-Handed Sword, the Pistol, and a bunch of other stuff as well. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you go ahead and click the like button. Subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all the New World videos that I keep putting out. We are going to be putting out a video pretty much every other day up until release. And let me know which of these weapons you guys are most excited for in the comments down below, and if there isn't anything that you are particularly excited for, what would you be excited for in terms of new content in the game? With that all being said though, let's get back into the video. So you guys may have seen some other YouTube channels out there posting spoilers or leaks or stuff like that. It's basically all content that has been in the game, and some of it has been in the game for a very, very long time. For instance, with the One-Handed Mace, this footage that you're seeing on the screen here is actually from the alpha, I think like 2018, 2019. So they do have some like content that was in the game and then it's been taken out, and then it's probably going to come back in at some point. But to start things off, the first thing we are going to be talking about is the Daggers and the Void Gauntlet. Now, during some sort of press event, this channel, Rocket Beans TV, was doing some coverage in German on the game, and when they open up the menu, it looks like they're in some sort of test version of the game, some alpha version of the game, because we see two extra weapons there that we wouldn't normally be able to see in beta that we haven't seen so far, and that is the Daggers and the Void Gauntlet. Now, both of these do look like they are a little bit unfinished in terms of the fact that the Daggers is using the same symbol as the sword, and the Void Gauntlet straight up doesn't have a symbol. But we do know quite a lot about the Void Gauntlet. We'll be going into some of the abilities later on. It does sound like a really cool weapon. In terms of the Daggers, not really much is known. The fact that it says Daggers with an S leads me to believe that it is going to be a dual-wield weapon, and maybe the first dual-wield weapon we've seen in the game, so a dagger in each hand. When I tried to think of other enemies in the game that use daggers, the closest thing I can think of is the Angry Earth guys with the dual swords. They like dash around a lot, really annoying to fight against. So if the daggers are going to be anything like this, I imagine it's going to be a highly mobile weapon. It might also be the first weapon that utilizes stealth in the game. Currently right now we can sort of dive into the grass, the tall grass, and that hides your nameplate and you kind of sort of become invisible, but like actual true invisibility in New World where players straight up can't see you when they're standing next to you, or they have to like look really closely because you have that sort of chameleon effect. I don't know if that would be broken in the game. I'd pass that question off to you guys. What do you think about the idea of stealth in New World being locked to some weapons in particular? Do you think it would be broken? Do you think it'd be a lot of fun? I'm kind of on the fence. I can see the pros and cons to both, but it certainly would be fun in my opinion. The other weapon that we saw in here, as I mentioned, is the Void Gauntlet. Now the Void Gauntlet has had actually quite a bit of extensive data mining on it. I'll put a link to this Reddit post in the description down below, but they list through all of the abilities and passives this weapon is going to have, and it's got to be said, it sounds pretty flippin' cool. The TLDR, I won't go over every single thing here, is that it's going to be a melee-based mage weapon, so it'll be like the Ice Gauntlet, except there's an ability that you can activate that makes it like summon a Darkness Blade, and then when you swing that at enemies, it applies Disintegrate, which increases subsequent damage you do on the next hits. It's also got capabilities to root people so they can no longer move. You can put a buff down on the ground that buffs both you and your friendlies damage while they're standing in the circle. It's got a bunch of fortify effects, so it increases the amount of damage you can take. It's like damage absorption, and it also has AoE healing and damage capabilities through building stacks and also firing out an orb. So yeah, it does sound like a sort of damage support hybrid weapon. Kind of makes me think of Moira from Overwatch. If you guys have played Overwatch before, you'll know what I'm talking about. Sort of simultaneously doing damage to the enemies and healing up your team, buffing their damage, and sort of getting in the thick of things with your blade, applying Disintegrate, applying Fortifiers to yourself. Yeah, a bit like a bruiser mage weapon, which sounds really, really cool. We don't really have anything in the game like that so far. Now, other weapons we're likely to see come into New World in a future date that we don't really have too much information on. First of all, there is the One-Handed Mace. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this was a weapon that was in the game a long, long time ago and has been taken out. Now, the speculation is that the One-Handed Mace will be a focus weapon, which is going to be awesome for the life staff users, because right now if you're using the life staff and you're putting points in focus, that's it. I mean, you can put an amber gem in something and it's pretty flippin' good. But the rumor is that the life staff might be nerfed, and this makes me pretty sad because you're kind of not really able to do anything else other than life staff. And if they nerf that and they nerf the amber gem and stuff, having at least another weapon that uses focus would give us a bit more options. Something that would be very exciting for me was the idea of being able to use the mace with the shield. Right now, the only weapon you can combine with the shield is the sword, but I'm thinking like a holy paladin, like mace and shield, heavily armored healer. It does sound pretty horrible to fight against. I mean, full constitution, full focus healers were pretty rough fighting against in the beta, but if there's some way they can balance it and allow us to have another weapon that utilizes the shield and also scales with focus, man, that would be super exciting for me. Another weapon that we're expecting to see come into New World at some point in the future is the two-handed sword or the long sword. So think about the hammer or the axe, but instead it's a sword. Now, there isn't really any abilities or that much to go off of it. We see it like being referenced in some images in the game, like this player here is using a two-handed sword. And there's a lot of enemies in the game that use the two-handed sword, and generally they are highly mobile and do a tremendous amount of damage. So if we imagine that the two-handed sword is going to get you ability to do this crazy like fire flip or the dash along the ground that you've seen probably some of the corrupted enemies do, does sound like a pretty awesome weapon. Finally, the only other weapon that we really have that much information on is the pistol. If we go back to some old alpha footage, you can see players using the pistol in here. I'm imagining it's going to be somewhat similar to the musket, but maybe it'll have some sort of smoke bomb abilities, some other sort of rogue type stuff. The daggers and pistol sound like they would be a pretty fun combo to go together, but as I mentioned, we don't really have any abilities or really that much data mining to go off of other than the previous footage that we have seen of the pistol. There's a couple of other weapons floating out there that people have suspected will come into the game, the pole arm and the pistol with a crossbow, but I don't really know anything about this. There's very little information to go off of, so take from that what you will. The other big thing to mention is the Brimstone Sands region. Now, some hackers in the game, I don't know what sort of speed hack they're doing or exploits, but they were able to actually go into the Brimstone Sands region, which was just to the left of Ebonscale Reach. Now, the fact that you have to go through a level 50 zone to get to this zone implies that it probably is going to be an endgame zone. There really isn't that much to see in this footage. It's just like a bunch of basic assets. Some parts aren't even fully finished. You can just like fall through the map and stuff. But it does appear to be a desert-based region, which is pretty unique. We don't have any of those currently. I imagine we're probably going to see a brand new dungeon here and maybe some other cool content as well, including a new settlement that we can take control of. So yeah, desert-based region potentially coming to New World in the future, called the Brimstone Sands. Looks pretty cool, pretty unique in my opinion. And for now, that basically does it for all of these sort of leaks, spoilers, unreleased content we have for New World. During the period from the preview to the beta, so during a lot of alpha tests, New World would continuously release patch notes, and in those patch notes, like every other month, there would be a new weapon added, a new zone added, a bunch of other changes. So they have shown their ability to continuously add new content at a very fast rate. Dungeons were added like every couple months as well. So if you want to see a full breakdown of like how often stuff was added, I'll put a link to that video up in the top right. But as I mentioned, the fact that there is something new coming to the game in the alpha patch notes pretty much every single month, it seems fairly believable that by the end of the year we are going to see quite a few of these weapons and this new region added to the game. So cool stuff to get excited for. I personally would like to see either the Mace or the Void Gauntlet come in first. I don't know how ready, how finished they are in terms of like actually we're going to get them into the game. There's been some speculation that we might see some of the new content come in for the 20th of September. Now that the game has been delayed and pushed back another month, maybe there'll be an opportunity to get something new in. But the way that we read their sort of explanation for the delay is they're just going to be focusing on server stability and squashing bugs rather than new content. So like I say, unless something is pretty much like ready to go, which could be the Void Gauntlet, it seems unlikely that we would see anything brand new for the 28th of September release. But yeah, that is the video, guys. Once again, let me know in the comments down below. Are there any of these particular weapons that you guys are the most excited for? Is there any other sort of ideas for new content you'd love to see in the game? For me personally, I'd love to see some sort of dungeon modifiers in terms of difficulty, a bit like the mythic dungeons from World of Warcraft, so you can run dungeons at a higher difficulty, which would require some sort of subsequent better key each time, but then you could get better rewards, and also some sort of like leaderboard system to show who had completed the highest difficulty dungeons in the fastest time or something like that. Just another layer of sort of replayability to the game, another layer of like competitiveness, but in the PvE rather than the PvP that I think the game could really benefit from. Right now, the PvP part of the game is pretty fleshed out, but it's pretty light on PvE content. So yeah, something like repeatable dungeons at a higher difficulty, or even raids. I'd love to see a big old raid in New World. Fingers crossed that's something we're going to see before the end of the year. But that's basically it. So guys, if you enjoyed this one, once again, make sure you go ahead and click the like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.